I phone her up and I do these things you do to make, I would ask her something just for the sake of asking her. But I did ask her.
Somebody else did. It was really hard to get. He wanted to he's almost 18.
Card is my answer.
I don't want to know.
Sorry.
Can you stand all this? I thought we would go over there with Beth. I think we should go without them or wait for them there.
Well, let's at least wait till they,
Are they coming here?
well, they're going to go in the carriage.
Very good.
We have to wait. Let's go and wait for them the other end.
Well, let's at least wait to make sure they get out. I
You want one of you in there too?
No.
You're looking very lovely.
Come on, Sean.
Go, Mom.
They're gonna put us in the camera.
Go on. There.
Last one.
This is getting pretty. Smile.
Okay? Come on, John, smile. I don't know, that's worse.
I've got to settle up with you.
Yeah, we watched it yesterday. You see, you forgot already.
You're videoing now, Beth. We're all going to be getting.
Canadians are like a bad day. Well, I saw in Nova Scotia curry. That's the white. That's Nancy's. That's right. You all set?
I will.
Somebody's coming down with video, watching some carriage on the way down.
The music is on, and people have their little bags of rice.
All right.
Sitting by the side, not for throwing inside, but for throwing outside after the ceremony.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Paul.
So you're welcome to come in. Well, then you might as well hang around outside. and one is for change.
One is joined up from the last one, actually.
Okay, and we'll try and take a picture and see if it works.
Who do you want to round up for this?
You won't go in until she arrives. I want you to hear it.
Doesn't want everybody to be out here, actually.
Oh, here, we got to take a picture of this.
Good grade.
I'll just see if you get it. Go in here and see it, okay? Are you,
Okay, everyone inside. That's it. Photo opportunities are going to be after. After? Come on. She's not getting out of the carriage until you go inside.
Okay. Talk to Cindy.
okay, you guys are there?
It was actually 2 days were quite nice. The last one we had game or two about
You were on
Look this way now.
Ready Oh, I think you're back here behind me. It could be too hot. Both are like right here.
There's a notice out back about the form of consent of getting in.
That's right. I have to say I do in Welsh.
I didn't say that.
So here it's here.
Minutes. Now.
Be a minute or two away.
Yes.
So you don't need
I don't know. Why is this
You can walk or drive or however make your way however you want up to Ruthven Castle. And there'll be sort of a little gathering out in the lawn there. Paul knows where that is, whichever it is. And then there's a lunch and reception that's kind of arranged up there. So just make your way sometime after you finish the reception. And they're taking a carriage, which is going to go kind of a circuitous route, scenic route. And so we're going to try and get there ahead of time, so you'll be able to get pictures of them arriving in the carriage at the castle if you get there in time. So.
They're not Mr. and Mrs. There. No, no, just leave. Is there enough room for you? Almost.
No, this is.
What's the video now? I wouldn't like my head.
May I welcome you all here this morning to the Register Office on this very happy occasion. I understand most of you have come over from Canada, and I hope that the Welsh way of life will impress you. This place in which you are now met has been duly sanctioned according to law for the celebration of marriages. You are here to witness the joining in matrimony of Eric Raymond Friedman and Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe. If any person present knows of any lawful impediment to this marriage, he should declare it now. For the bride and bridegroom, please stand. Is your full name Eric Raymond Friedman, and your full name Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe? Before you are joined in matrimony, I have to remind you of the solemn and binding character of the ceremony of marriage. Marriage, according to the law of this country, is the voluntary union of one man with one woman, to the exclusion of all others. Now, I'm going to ask each of you in turn to declare that you do not know of any lawful reason why you should not be married to each other. Will the bridegroom please repeat after me? I do solemnly declare.
I do solemnly declare
that I know not
that I know not
of any lawful impediment
of any lawful impediment
why I, Eric Raymond Friedman,
while I, Eric Raymond Friedman,
may not be joined in matrimony
may not be joined in matrimony
to Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe.
to Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe.
Now reply. I do solemnly declare
I do solemnly declare
that I know not
that I know not
of any lawful impediment
any lawful impediment
why I, Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe,
why I, Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe,
may not be joined in matrimony
may not be joined in matrimony
to Eric Raymond Friedman.
to Eric Raymond Friedman.
Now the solemn moment has come for these two persons to contract the marriage before you, their witnesses. Can you all please stand? You take the ring, put it on the bride's finger, and hold it there while you repeat after me. I call upon these persons,
I call upon these persons
here present,
here present
to witness that I, Eric Raymond Friedman,
to witness that I, Eric Raymond Friedman,
do take thee, Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe,
do take thee, Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe,
to be my lawful wedded wife,
to be my lawful wedded wife.
All right, will you sit the ring, please, and use on the bridegroom's finger. And hold it there while you repeat after me. I call upon these persons,
I call upon these persons
here present,
here present
to witness that I, Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe,
to witness that I, Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe,
will take thee, Eric Raymond Friedman,
to take thee, Eric Raymond Friedman,
to be my lawful wedded husband.
to be my lawful wedded husband.
Eric Raymond Friedman and Nancy Elizabeth Kehoe, you have both made the declarations prescribed by law and have made a solemn and binding contract with each other in the presence of the witnesses here assembled. You are now man and wife together. You may all be seated now.
Well done. I go for carriage rides, but man. Am I the only one? You're stuck with me now.
Might Mr. Freeman, please, if you would come and check the register and sign the register.
Yep.
Yes. We moved one from the end of this chair onto the bottom of the chair, so I lift them over.
Big shot.
Do you wish both of these?
The dress is made of Gore-Tex, so we can turn it into a pant afterwards.
I've got a super suit.
Honestly,
Another one.
Move over there. The other side of John. Go to the other side. Hey.
She's your daughter.
I don't know.
She's after I memorized in Welsh how to say it. I was going to say, adore you.
How long are you holding this country reaction?
Both worked in Liverpool, actually. The Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
It's been just the weather, and we're living over for the
I do? You do? You don't go to anybody now where you used to? Thanks. It's so beautiful. That's really great.
Just one thing, take a picture of your room in the past.
I hope everybody's hungry.
Yeah.
That's for sharing your room.
Tonight, now we're going to send the wedding certificates to Mr. and Mrs.
Come on, Eric. Give her another kiss, Eric. Come on.
Paul, maybe we should keep it for safekeeping.
You want me to keep it?
So I don't burn it?
Anybody else want a photograph of them signing the register or anything before they leave?
We got lots of pictures.
Would the guests like to go out first?
That Eric raked up with his own two hands.
Don't throw them down. Why don't we strew them down the ground? Anybody want some rice to throw? Yeah, let's make a carpet of them instead of throwing them on.
Just put it on the horse, see if you get the noise.
Watch out, we're going to get pelted.
Yeah, I want to take a picture. Just get on the steps and take a picture. That way it's too identical.
Right there.
Hummus. Smell it, Dad.
This is Beaufort. This is Beaufort. I have to say hi to Beaufort. I'm on. Oh, okay. Where is that?
If I look this way, when you take it out.
Right here. Oh yes, I certainly will.
Wait, wait, wait.
My birthday.
Oh, that's cool.
Give her a hug first.
Thank you. What's that?
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, it'll be riding at 100 miles an hour. Pop.
Huh? Oh.
Good timing.
Oh, yes.
They were gorgeous. They both were. Weren't they not?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, they say that.
Yeah, shouldn't we go back to the castle? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I said I'm very lucky.
There she is. She's waving to me. Yeah, but she hasn't got her white gloves on.
Sorry to interrupt you a little. What a way to arrive. Yes, please. Just lovely.
I guess they want to park here.
There you are. We're almost rid of it, too. There's the last handful.
Kind enough to take this part.
Finish the whole bottle, I hope.
Thank you very much.
My mom's done this.
What's that? Oh,
Another one.
Oh, look at those.
Very, very good to me.
well, with both work. You've been good, lad.
Hold the picture.
There a minute.
Big weather.
What's that?
Thank you.
Maybe you want some? You want some
I don't think so, but
Don't give him the pin. Don't give him the pin.
he's hot. He's worked very hard.
Well, you beat us here.
No kidding. That was the ice sheet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a safe drive.
Yep, you had 4.
Wanna
My
sit-
second thingy.
Sit back. Sharing our cup of happiness. Will be. Definitely will be.
Yes, just on the left. I know where you mean. I know it because I used to.
Black, she's gonna be.
Nancy, we should probably line up here.
There you go.
Get out your own. Someone get a zoom on that, John. Johnny's got a big bladder. What, did he have a beer before this?
So that champagne's gonna be so sweet.
That was for the urologists in the crowd. No prostitutism there. What a flow rate.
I got a picture of
Already you join the crowd.
We did it. We did it. We're here and.
I think it was one of the Welsh ones that the English started up.
So it's in which chain? I mean, it's not in the right chain for the sort of romance Carnarvon chain.
The English one, the Welsh one was Guinness Dinton and Guinness Brown, or they call it Guinness Dinton.
Right. Guinness, whichever you prefer.
John, how do you work this? How do you work this? Oh, cool. And then I pull back?
Yeah, a couple of times. Okay, once more. Okay.
Oh, won't go back anymore.
That's all the way it'll go.
That would be easier, but thanks, guys.
Kevin?
Did not get to be that big, but she would have wanted to ride it.
Would have been in white too.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous.
There's some more down there. Are you taking photographs?
I've done one.
What?
See more,
How many pictures does this take?
What's it up to?
27.
I like the big because
We appreciate all the efforts you've gone to be here with us. You're all very important to both of us. And you each represent a very different facet of our lives. As Eric says, I'm the only person who knows everyone present. So I'd like to take this opportunity to give each one of you a little introduction so that you'll each know a bit more about one another. However,
Can I interject for something? Sure. I was just going to say, of course, in keeping with the medieval feast tonight and the castle, we're seated in a somewhat circular arrangement in Arthurian style, because each one of you is as important as the next. We didn't feel that there was a true head table here. Carry on.
before I go through and do the introductions, I would like to specially mention a few people who couldn't be here today. Betty, Eric's sister-in-law, is in Montreal and is expecting a baby in the next few weeks. We miss both her and her daughter Laura, and we thank her for parting with her husband Paul so that he could join us today. I'd also like to mention David Raffles, Eric's nephew, who's in Toronto. Unfortunately, it's too close to final high school exams to miss a week of school. However, we look forward to seeing David during the summer vacation. Hopefully he can make it over here then too. At this time, I would also like to mention Eric's parents, who, if they were alive today, would have been such a large part of this celebration. They are certainly missed.
Talk about the table, Eric.
As well, I'd like to mention my sister Julie. Who would have loved to have taken part today. And although we don't see these people here with us today, I believe that they're here celebrating with us and watching over us on our special day. Now, I'll get on with the introductions. On Eric's immediate right is Bianca Lang. I've known Bianca since I was 5 years old, but we became particularly close friends when we were both living in Toronto during my years at photography school and her internship, and then a few years later when she was back in Toronto for her residency in pediatric rheumatology, and while I was nursing. Now Bianca lives and works in Halifax, and I miss her desperately. However, judging by our phone bills, we still talk almost as much as we did when we lived a lot closer to one another. Continuing around the table is Bev. Bev is Eric's older sister, who has been very supportive to Eric. Bev and Eric have a very special relationship. She's a great lady who I've enjoyed getting to know a bit and who I look forward to knowing a lot better. Her patience and skills as a teacher are obvious when she's advising or recommending. Thanks so much for being here today. Johnny Stein is Bev's other half and my favorite computer guru. He's also kindly offered to be the video camera operator for today. Johnny also shares my love of sailing. Beth Raffles is Bev's daughter and Eric's niece, and it's her brother David that unfortunately couldn't be here today. Bev remarks that Beth has a little twinkle in her eye when she's into a little bit of mischief, and I'm sure it's genetic because Eric has that same little twinkle. Thanks for missing a week of school. Harry Cutler, lovingly known by Eric's family as Unky, and I don't think I could call him anything else but Unky, is Eric's uncle. And he's been a great support to me at family gatherings and when I'm trying to remember who's who. He's left his legal practice in Toronto for a week to join us here. Thanks a lot. That's Beatrice Lodger, or Beachy, as Eric calls her. She's just returned from 6 months of world travel to Nepal, and Australia, and New Zealand. And she was one of Eric's mother's closest friends. She's watched Eric grow up, as have the Rosenbergs. Beachy has a grown family in Toronto, but that doesn't keep her from traveling and teaching abroad as she did in Nepal. No matter how busy she is, she always has time to keep us up to date, and we have a great collection of postcards from all over the world. Thanks. Nancy Sr., my mother. She's been a big support with all the event organizing from Halifax. Invitations and bridesmaids' dresses, and adding her artistic expertise to help all this come off successfully. I'd also like to thank her for sharing this wonderful dress with me, which was her dress a number of years ago. Mr. Brian McCormick, the wonderful father and a very close friend of mine. He's here from Nova Scotia, and I'm thrilled that he's decided to make our wedding an excuse to travel abroad.
Thank you.
Andrea Harrell. Andrea is also an intensive care nurse. I worked with Andrea in Halifax. Just a few weeks ago, Eric and I enjoyed a wonderful weekend with her parents in the south of England. Andrea and I, however, have other connections. We both love sailing and Chester, Nova Scotia, where we both have summer cottages. Things that both our mothers also enjoyed in our youth, and still enjoy. I hope Andrea and I will continue to meet and to sail in Chester in the years ahead. Christopher McCormick. Chris is an old friend from Toronto. We originally met in Chester, but I know him best from when I worked in Toronto. Chris is a successful architect in Toronto and is an inspiration to my creative abilities and encourages me to keep up with my photography, especially my architectural photography. And actually, he's been filling in very nicely as a video camera operator too. Sylvia and Abe Rosenberg from Toronto. Just like Beachy, we're very close friends of Eric's parents. Abe and Eric's dad, both pharmacists, became buddies during the war when they were stationed here in England. England is also where Abe met Sylvia. Thanks so much for being here. I feel that in some way you bring Betty and Murray, Eric's parents, with you. Thanks. Arian Montari. Arian's another international guest on the urology group. He was extremely helpful to Eric during Eric's first few weeks at Alderhead, breaking into the British system. Arian's from Germany and has got to know Liverpool well over the past year or so, and has helped expose Eric and I to a little bit of Liverpool culture. Thanks. Heather and Dave Rideout. They're here in England working in Birmingham for a year. Dave, like Eric, is doing a one-year fellowship. Dave specializing in thoracic surgery. Heather and Dave are great friends, and we've enjoyed some fun times with them, including a great weekend on the canals. Houseboating. Eric has known Dave for a while, but one of his more vivid memories of his early friendship with Dave is of a night he offered to cover call for Dave so that Dave could join Heather for the birth of his second child. Dave and Heather will be settling in Maine, and if we don't see them there, I'm sure we'll see them on vacation elsewhere. Valerie and Anthony Rickwood, very hospitable Liverpudlians, who share a very memorable Christmas feast with us. Mr. Rickwood has been Eric's mentor and teacher, and I'm told a very skilled surgeon. We'd especially like to thank him for canceling his operating list today, so that we could all be here today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Jenny and Andy Arnold, more medical sorts. Eric had the opportunity to work with Andy for a month when Andy visited Canada last year. Andy also previously filled the position that Eric's filling now. They've been a very warm and friendly, welcoming, and we look forward to more fun times with them, either in Canada or in Birmingham, where Andy has started practice. Beside Andy is Leanne Towell and Graham Brandt, displaced Aussies living in London. 6 years ago, when I was backpacking in Europe, I met Leanne in a youth hostel. We traveled together for 2 weeks, and we've remained great friends. She's since been married, and I'm thrilled that Graham's business has brought them to London. Also, they recently had a baby girl who's hiding off somewhere there. Beside Graham is Maria Lang. Maria is Bianca's sister, and she's one of my dearest and oldest friends from Halifax. We spent 13 years of grade school together, and with her sister Bianca, we share very many common memories. Unfortunately, her husband David couldn't be here. He's at home taking care of the medical practice that they share. Maria's also recently started a family, and I extend a special thanks to her mother, who is looking after little Joseph David to allow Maria to be here today. Kevin Bush. Kevin's a very good friend of Eric's, from their residency in Halifax. Kevin and Eric share many common interests and have a lot of fun together, whether it's on snowboards or in kayaks. Kevin was there in Halifax when I met Eric again, and he's seen the relationship blossom.
That's one word for it.
Kevin's working on his post-grad fellowship in plastic surgery and is visiting us from Detroit. Mrs. Barb Hunter often acted as a temporary mom for me while Sue, her daughter, and I were at photography school together. I always felt that I had a place to stay when it got a little bit too late. There was always a second home. Thanks for being here today. Peter Keeler. This is my dad and my pal. My dad lives in Toronto. He's a retired lawyer and now enjoys doing volunteer work with both the provincial and federal governments on committees for the health and safety of the elderly, especially with respect to their legal rights. Thanks for being here today and for being so supportive today and every day. Sue Ford. Sue's a very special friend who I met while in photography school in Oakville. She's a great skier and a great pal. She works for British Airways, and I must thank British Airways for getting Sue and her mom here today. Unfortunately, her husband David is at home looking after her 2 boys, so he couldn't join her today. And here beside me, Paul, my brother-in-law. He's Eric's older brother and a special friend. Unfortunately, his wife Betty, as I mentioned before, couldn't be here today, as she's expecting very soon. She's in Montreal with her daughter Laura. I think Paul may be trying to repay Eric for his trip to Paul's wedding. Paul was married in Montreal and Eric flew from Auckland, New Zealand. Thanks, Paul, for being here. I look forward to also celebrating in Montreal with you and Betty later maybe this year. Oh yeah, that only leaves one other person. I don't think he needs any introduction. This is Eric Friedman, my husband. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Abe Rosenberg, a very dear friend, to come up and the friends over here.
Come up over there?
They're right here.
Oh, right there.
Come on down.
Right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam hamotzillechem min ha'eretz. Translation. Blessed art thou,
Art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who bringeth forth bread from the earth. Somebody is supposed to carry on with the slicing of bread.
Yes, that will be carried on.
That will be carried on?
You've done your deed. Thank you
I've
very
done my
much.
thing, okay.
And I think we're ready for the wine as well.
I did it.
Okay. And as soon as the wine comes in, I'm going to call upon my sister Beverly. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today? Before
Make my speech now
yes,
or
go
later?
ahead. Go ahead. Take care. While you have the time.
Well, any of you who would know the Friedman clan would know that our tradition from my father is a tradition of speech giving. So it pleased me no end to hear Nancy carry on in the Friedman tradition. Normally when brothers and sisters get together, it's ordinary times. Brothers and sisters get to call each other on regular occasions and drop in on one another's houses. And that's not the case with my brothers and I. When we get together, when the three of us are in one place, it's always an extraordinary time. Because we all live in 3 different cities. I stay stationary. Paul is more or less stationary in Montreal, except for an excursion to Toulouse. And Eric is anywhere that you can guess. And wherever Eric or Paul go, I simply follow. And John has been very supportive, and we've gone off to Kenya on safari and off to Toulouse, and we just follow my brothers wherever they are. And so, for the 3 of us to be together is always extraordinary. Either Eric is flying in for an interview or checking out a hospital, or Paul is in for a conference. But it's never just because we're together. So it's always a special occasion, always a simcha. The other thing about our family is that our relationship is extraordinary. It's not a normal brother-sister relationship. And that's partially because of our parents' death many, many years ago, that we are to each other both siblings and parents. And each one of us at a variety of occasions has acted as a parent role and also as a sibling role. And it means that the relationship between the 3 of us, although we're separated by thousands of miles often, is a very special relationship. The relationship between Eric and Nancy is extraordinary. The first time that I met Nancy, Eric had been in Manitowoc and had brought back a crew of friends. And Nancy, as did several other people, stepped out of Eric's bedroom one morning to breakfast. And being the good older sister, I simply said, "Oh, sure, how many?" and made breakfast. What to me was extraordinary is that I remembered Nancy. And so that when Eric brought Nancy to Beth's bat mitzvah, not so very long ago, I had a definite memory of that morning breakfast. And I thought that that was extraordinary. I think the wedding today has been extraordinary. I mean, Eric and Nancy are special people, but to get married in sunshine in Wales, I think is extraordinary. To have the castle and the carriage ride has been extraordinary. To have so many friends come such vast distances is extraordinary. So all in all, I think this is an extraordinary wedding, and Eric and Nancy were all very happy to be here. So what I would like to do is the blessing over the wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagofen. Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who bringest forth the fruit of the vine. Amen. Amen.
Well, thank you very much, Bev. Well, as you can see, I've taken on the role of MC here. A little out of tradition. But I would next like to call upon a special person in my life, Mr. Peter Kehoe. Oh, Mrs. Kehoe. Oh, I see. Sorry. Oh. Nancy Kehoe Sr. is going to say the blessing. Thank you.
For what we are about to receive, may the Lord make us true examples. Amen.
good times roll.
I think it is. Hi.
Not putting him on the spot, however. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Friedman, and friends. I use the word friends with some care because I feel, although many of you are people I've only met very briefly, you've all impressed me as the kind of people that are the sort that I would treasure as friends. Individually, you're all very warm in your expression of feeling of good wishes toward the bride and groom, and you've certainly been very warm in welcoming Nancy's mother and myself here today. Now, there's nothing very profound I can add to the joy I feel in wishing you all the very best in the years to come, Nancy and Eric. Nor can I adequately express how I feel. My feelings are mixed about the prospect of, I won't say losing a daughter, but seeing a daughter blossom forth in such beauty and radiance on a day like today. It makes me feel proud. And that pride is combined with a very sincere wish for your continued happiness and long life. And all I can offer you is my assurance of best wishes for every good thing in the years to come. Those wishes will continue with you through thick and thin, through the ups and downs of life, and whether or not it's your desire you're going to be stuck with my good wishes. And I would ask you to join with me in wishing them the very best, and that this day will be the first of many happy days in your years to come.
Thanks.
Very nice.
Real word.
The day that Eric was born, Mom was obviously very pregnant. I knew that. I was much older. I'm 9 years older than Eric and 7 years older than Paul. And I wandered into my parents' bedroom, and Dad was there, and I said to Dad, "Where's Mom?" He didn't know, so I went into the kitchen and went downstairs to the laundry room to find her, and she wasn't anywhere. And I wandered back to Dad and said, "I can't find her." "Oh, no, she's somewhere around the house," he said. Just then the phone rang. It's about 7:30 in the morning, and it's actually Sylvia and Abe's brother-in-law, who was our family doctor, was Teppy, calling to say that, lo and behold, I had another baby brother. In the middle of the night, she had gone into labor, decided not to bother anyone, quietly slipped out of bed, took a cab to the hospital, didn't wake my father because he had an important day of work. And lo and behold, that was the day that Eric was born. Paul is born on March 11th and Eric was born on March 12th. And the two boys were born about 2 years, 2 hours apart. So that's another significant fact in their lives.
So in other words, the follow-up of that, of course, is we're setting a precedent, and I don't expect to be woken up in the middle of the night.
Wrong! Or Nancy, you don't expect to be woken up.
Talk to Paul about that. That precedent is not very
Well, it's worth a try.
But to continue the story, because of course my mother wasn't present at my birthday when I was 2 because she was still in the hospital wasting time with my brother, I was given a red fire engine, the kind that you can climb inside and pedal as a birthday gift. Sure enough,
Consolation prize.
Sure enough, as soon as Eric got old enough to understand what toys were all about, and that was pretty quick. Now, he came to think of that as his toy, and then it was broken after a while. And I still think about that.
Well, I'm going to pursue a little bit. I said I wasn't going to say anything, but I did think of one thing. Was last night at dinner we were talking about the fact that if we went anywhere in the car, this is Betty, their mother, and I have a son who's 2 years older than Paul, so two and two. We never, ever allowed Eric and Paul to sit in the back seat without somebody in the middle.
Well, as we are here. It's no coincidence that Nancy's in between us.
And many a time, whoever was driving the car would say, I'm about to stop the car because I can't go on with what's going on. But the other thing that remains as a very favorite thing in my head that moves around every once in a while is, Eric!
I remember Eric was, in Yiddish we would say a mazit, which means a mischief maker. And Mum had a clay turquoise antelope. Do you remember Head?
Yeah.
She loved this. Eric couldn't have been more than 3. And he took it and he held it over the fireplace. And she looked at him and she said, don't you dare. Well, that, of course, was the wrong thing to say. And he proceeded to smash it on the fireplace. And I remember she went nuts. Then there was the time that Eric
Can we have the next chorus, please?
One more. He was in this little walker, and we had a basement stairs, and we were all downstairs folding laundry. And Eric ran through the walker, over the stairs, hovered in the stairs for about, 3 seconds, and then smashed about 15 feet on the cement concrete as we watched him. Got himself up totally unhurt and continued on.
Thank you, Lenny.
I'm looking forward to your children.
Thanks, Deb.
Yeah, okay, the other side of the coin, of course, is that, I'm sure this was true for some of you too, everybody who ever knew them always collected, the cardboard and toilet rolls and any other little things that were hanging around the house, because we knew that they had to go to the Friedman's house because Eric was going to make something out of it. And he did. And if you walked into his room, there were the most marvelous things designed and made and put together, and watch your steps so that you don't step on them or destroy them anyway. And they lasted for a long time. I remember having something.
But you see, he still does that today because he brought our kids 2 garbage bagfuls of orange juice containers. And it's like, kids, don't touch this. This is perfect. Building castles. But making sure that the kids don't push that out.
Yeah, right. Don't touch it. No, you can't do that.
This isn't Peacock.
Well, that's the Eric side.
I hear them screaming outside. Don't get me out here. Thank you very much.
Have your attention again, Rory. I see my sister down there talking to Mr. Rosenberg, so that's my cue, of course, to introduce Abe Rosenberg, a very close friend of the family. Abe and Sylvia were perhaps the closest friends of my parents. And as Nancy mentioned, Abe and my father were over in England during the wartime, and Abe met his wartime bride, Sylvia, and they were married here a few years back. And I'd like to, Abe, if you want to say a few words, now's a good time.
Like 48 years.
But who's counting?
That's enough to bring a tear to your eye. Actually, I think this whole discussion here is becoming a little lopsided because the emphasis seems to be on Eric. I was going to talk on Eric and his den of urology or something. Urology maintenance, but so again, we have to go into Eric's youth and the family. And Anybody object to that?
We'd love to hear it.
I'd love to hear. Okay. Now, just sort of a side
More secrets.
It's only 10 pages long. Okay. We're so happy to be present here at Eric and Nancy's wedding. We were present at Bev's and Paul's weddings, and fond memories we have of them. And fond memories which we will have of this wedding. But somehow with Eric, you couldn't be sure of his moves. His life as a youth was unpredictable and even exotic by the standards of the rest of the family, which is not really exotic. Now, what are some of the little things that I remember by coming into the Friedman household, especially when the kids were growing up? Well, generally, when you came in, you usually count on Eric pounding either his brother Paul or his drums. I think he had a set of drums, so it was one of the other people pounding. And Eric had a great thing for quite a while about dinosaurs. I think Nancy should look into this.
He still does.
Because for years it went on, and his whole, the life of young Eric centered around the making of dinosaurs. And he would make them out of paper or wire, sticks, plaster, anything. And you couldn't avoid them. They were either hanging or lying around all over the place. And I don't know, I was just wondering whether this was significant in some psychological way. Also, Eric, being a little different from the rest of the family, was a physical being. He played hockey, and the Friedman household, which was a very well-disciplined household, had to rearrange its orderly schedule to accommodate sunrise practices. That's the obvious thing in Canada, America, if you have a kid playing hockey, you have to get up with sunrise. Later on, Eric played football and climbed giant firs in British Columbia, so I'm told. I didn't see him do it, as a young lumberjack. Eric also subdued their monstrous dog, Odin. A dog named Odin, that means man of war, I think. When they named a cuddly puppy Odin, they must have known that the puppy was going to become a 200-pound man-eater. Finally had to get him way up to the Eskimos up north. So these are just glimpses into the life of the Friedman family. Betty and Murray and Sylvia and I were very close friends. A friendly competition existed between us. When we had a kid, they had a kid. I mean, they just couldn't stand it. Now, we shared very tight living accommodations for a while, but that had nothing to do with it. Betty and Murray were people of high ideals and set noble aims for their children. Bev and Paul, they could see, would someday fulfill the noble goals set for them. But Eric? What would become of Eric? Ah, that they were here to see Eric and Bev and Paul. Eric the elusive, Eric the effervescent, Eric the evanescent. Aye, even Eric the erudite has attained all the goals his parents hoped for. And now, with loving Nancy, hand in hand, they continue life's adventure. As that famous bard of yore might have said, and I'm going to get in trouble here, the happy pair who today in Ruth and wed will ne'er have remorse, no root to dread. Anybody understand that? We wish Nancy and Eric a long life filled with happiness, health, and contentment in a peaceful and just world.
Well said.
Thank you, Ed.
Oh, good.
Nancy story. Good.
Now, we want to hear some other side for a while.
We have been biased in our conversation, but it is wonderful because we're all getting to know Eric, and we are getting to know his secrets, and the secrets from the past seem to be the same ones that are there now.
Some things just never change.
I know.
Perfection
The
is
more
hard
they
to
change, the more they remain the same.
Nancy wears a necklace most of the time that says live, love, and laugh. She's not wearing it today, but her friend Maria is, because it has to be with Nancy all the time. It's her motto. She lives with all the gusto possible, doing as much as possible one day, as long as it's on her to-do list.
That's
all
a
the way
big
down.
list.
When I came here in January, so I was going to come for a couple of days. What are we going to do? Well, we got in the car first thing in the morning, and she had a list of about 20 things we had to do that day. We got them done. With anybody else, I would not get them done. I'm not used to that. My husband gets 3 things done, and she gets 10. She loves unconditionally. Once she has decided to be your friend, her love never dies. She is a special person to all who know her, from her young patients in the hospital to her friends in Halifax and Chester, as well as everyone she always kept in touch with at Sheridan College, people in Oakville. And she just, unconditional. It doesn't matter what happens. And she laughs. When others are down, we can count on Nancy to love and laugh and smile with all her heart. And I know that she will continue to live, love, and laugh. And now, luckily, she has someone to share this with. And I wish you all a happy life.
Well said, well said. I'll drink to that.
It's a memory. So.
The diet very well.
Teaser stories. Teaser stories.
Anyone. Mr. Right.
I have to say something today, and that the Love, Live, and Laugh necklace brought back, or sort of touched my heart a bit, because first of all, with the laugh, I met Nancy in the operating room. I think we were doing a hernia on a 2-year-old or something. She's one of the few people that ever laughed at one of my jokes. And I think she's always seemed to display this smile on her, which today she is displaying more than ever. She's always had a lovely smile on her. She's a very beautiful woman, very lucky Eric. And of course, living with Eric, sometimes you just can't help but laugh. And as far as living goes, Eric and I met, we started residency together, and Eric is a very resourceful person. We were allowed 4 weeks a year vacation. Well, Eric and I spent 6 months together in the same rotation, and he managed to get 4 weeks out of the first 6 months. And I think rumor has it he got an additional 4 weeks out of the second 6 months. And as everyone knows, he loves to travel, and I think Nancy's going to continue to travel much as she has done in the past, and certainly live well with Eric. I think they'll have a wonderful life together. And of course, love is what marriage and being together is all about. And I can see by the look in your eyes today, I'm sure you both will have a long, lasting relationship that will continue to grow. And I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for inviting us to be here.
Thank you, Dave.
Tell that story. It's a funny story. It's hilarious. I don't laugh at your jokes.
Well, before Nancy and I stroll down and do the old cake cutting routine, I'd like to call upon my brother Paul, who grew up with me through trials and tribulations, more probably tribulations, but to say a few words. That was good peacock, wasn't it?
As has become abundantly clear to everyone, there is a certain tradition in our family about making speeches. I've known my brother all his life. I haven't known Nancy all her life. As Eric mentioned at the beginning, it was very special for me 5 years ago when he was able to come from New Zealand so unexpectedly to spend all of 12 hours in Montreal and much more than that flying to Montreal and flying back. And I remember thinking to myself then that whenever he would decide to get married, and who knows who he'd marry,
Or where?
that I would be there. And as he also mentioned, my wife and I were expecting our second child in just about 2 weeks' time, I hope. I called home last night and no one was there. But I managed to sleep anyhow. All I really wanted to say is that I used to wonder about, the kind of woman that he'd be with one day, the kind of woman that he'd marry. And then I met Nancy. And Eric certainly didn't lean over and say, she's going to be the one. I would have been surprised had he said that. But I remember thinking to myself, she's going to be the one. And it makes me feel very special to be here and to feel part of loving people has to do with feeling special and feeling lucky. And I know that Bev and we feel very lucky to have Nancy become a part of our family. And that's all I want to say.
Paul, not Eric.
They like to dump me and keep Nancy. Mrs. Kehoe would then like to take me, so it evens out. It's fine.
Yes, I'll take you.
And you'll get rid of Nancy and keep me. My family get rid of me and keep Nancy, so.
So it's all easy. We have a better solution. We're going to keep both of you, all of us. Should we go up?
I think so.
It's cake time. Oh, well.
It's cake time.
There we go.
Camera is ready.
You did tell about Eric meets the IHO surgeon?
Oh, I'm going to take these. That's a fight.
I like it.
You have to read them.
Yes, I will.
Oh, yeah. Feet or meters or acres
Together and now. Ready? Well done. You can link the night.
Feed some to each other.
What's that?
What are we supposed to feed some to
Okay,
each other?
here. Good thing you're here. It's a good thing you're here.
Somebody's this day.
I'm just following rules here.
I wanted us to have the time with the two little hockey players on top, facing off.
We're going to have dinosaurs on top.
I wanted to have dinosaurs on my field.
My wife said it's
That's
just
good.
like
That's a good one. Ready?
Providing a little arch around.
This is it.
We all got a piece
Very
of
good.
paper.
Oh,
Can you slip it under your
just try to forget you guys. Yep. Standing. I don't know if he's just wanting to stretch or say something. Christopher, go ahead.
I'm charged with the responsibility of drinking a toast to you on behalf of Hugh Baker, which I will do.
Cheers. You have to explain who Hugh Baker is now for
Hugh
everybody.
Baker is an old friend of Nancy's, probably mostly from Chester, which is in Nova Scotia. And I was thinking about these toasts that we're supposed to do to get you to kiss, not that you need to right now, but I was remembering a story that I could tell from a few years ago, which is probably the first big amount of time that I spent with Nancy. There was a night that Hugh Hugh and I came with Nancy. We were actually driving to Nova Scotia, and Nancy brought Teaser, her dog. And it was all kind of best to get home to see our parents, and for Hugh, his grandfather, who's in Chester, and also because it was Halloween. And we drove through the night. I think we made it in 17 hours from Toronto to Halifax, and arrived. And because we'd made this mad tear across the country, our costumes that year were the characters from The Wizard of Oz. And we had Nancy done it, and one of us was the straw man and one of us the tin man, and we had this whole entourage going through a big party downtown Halifax of 30,000 people. And the last vision that I had before I went to sleep was Hugh and Nancy already passed out on the couch, and Nancy with about a month's worth of makeup on her face, coming out like the young Judy Garland, had kissed me, written across her cheeks. So a toast.
So what did you do on the way home from that trip?
To drag your story one step further and to make the family a little bit larger, not only did we travel, the three of us, plus her dog, to Nova Scotia, but we returned with various belongings, including a vacuum cleaner. And we stopped in at my parents in Wolfville and picked up a cat. And, we were just planning on going for dinner. Nancy took a kitten, and Hugh threatened Nancy that if we hadn't come up with a name, by the time we hit the border of Mansfield, it would be called Newbie. We arrived back in Toronto with Teaser and Newbie.
And Newbie is still with us today.
It's a long life.
Thank you.
Kevin has a story.
Well, yeah, I've been kind of pushing to this because I don't like to speak in front of people that I don't really know all that well, but
now that you've had some alcohol, you don't mind making a fool of it.
Dave's kind of putting the shame down here. But I sort of met Eric about 1 year before he met Nancy, and then since that time, I've had the pleasure of spending time with both of them. And we usually spend time on holidays together. And a holiday with Eric and Nancy is like no other holiday you've been on. You don't take a holiday, you do things. You do things in Halifax, and when you take a holiday, you just do them somewhere else. So we've gone on a couple of holidays, and the first time, in fact, that they really spent a significant amount of time together was a ski holiday. And part of that is a story about Eric that I can't tell because it's a little too embarrassing. But suffice it to say that he went, his latest craze was snowboarding. And so he bought a completely inappropriate 6-foot-long snowboard and took it with us when we went down skiing. Proceeded to go up on the slopes and hurt his back. Came back, took a couple of Tylenol trees, had a few drinks with dinner, and then crawled into his bedroom, putting his head in the door jamb on the way for about 2 days. So the next day, Nancy and I thought, well, if Eric can do it, we could do it. So we went. Yeah, practiced that a little bit. We went and took some, rented some snowboards and took a lesson. And we got to this class, and there was Nancy, myself, and a 5-year-old kid and a 6-year-old kid. 4 of us, and about an 18-year-old instructor. So the 5 and 6-year-old, they were pretty good, and they were beating us down to the bottom, and we were working away trying to get down. And I get down to the bottom of the lift, and I look up, and there's Nancy with Chuck, I think his name was. And Chuck is like behind her, showing her how to ski down the slope. And the little 5-year-old is standing beside me, and he looks up and he goes, "Yeah, how long do you think they're going to be doing that?" The whole day was just like that. Chuck spent the whole day just showing Nancy all the slopes, and it was unbelievable. We were pretty disgusted by it. But that was the first time I sort of really met Nancy. And we sort of continued doing a lot of other things until a lot of other trips, and most involved kayaking or hiking or just things like that. And the latest one we went on really involved Bianca at the head of the table, and we went to Newfoundland, which is fairly rugged, and did this map and compass hike. And we almost didn't make it on the trip because Eric, and you may have noticed his organizational skills, and he likes to organize everybody. In fact, I'm sure he'll organize you all before the day is out. Well, I dropped some friends off who were visiting, and I came back, and these guys had stayed, and just the 3 of them, the night alone, just the 3 of them.
Wow.
And I got back, and nobody was talking to anybody. but hadn't even started the trip yet. So we got to the parking lot at this ferry you have to take to get to the end, and Eric made everybody empty their packs out and laid everything out in the parking lot. And all these tourists are coming by. We have stuff spread over 4 car parking spots. We had to even out the load and make sure everything was. Bianca was the big loser because she didn't have 1/4 of the weight that we had in our packs. So we got all that out. The guy gets us on this ferry and he drives us down to the end of this really nice fjord, and all the time he's cheap shotting us, what a bunch of idiots we are going up there to hike and stuff. And Nancy and Bianca are at the front of the boat and they're not talking to Eric, and I'm the only guy that's talking to Eric because I don't really know what happened, and I never did find out really what happened. So we get off the dock and then he starts organizing us again, we're unpacking our packs again. And I was taking a few pictures and I turn around and there's Bianca and Nancy and they've got this big ice axe. Eric's kind of bending over and they put something in his pack and they're just about ready to put it in his back. I have this just great picture of it. Anyways, I just wanted to wish you both the best.
Thank you for that, Kevin.
Put the cap on that ice axe.
A true friend indeed.
Behind the ice axe.
If anyone has anything else to say, now's the time. Well, that's before me.
Eric has something prepared for us.
A lecture, take note.
I'm going to hand out the pens and pads now, and you can see.
Hope
you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed
putting this together. It was a lot of fun.
Is this urology?
This is all. Mr. Rick can go now.
Yes. You have to speak really loudly, please.
Can you see from there? Is that?
Yeah, but we can't hear.
Oh, you'll hear me. That's not a problem. Now, I have to. I'll apologize in advance if there's any difficulties with the machine. We had some problems getting things running this morning, and slides fell on the floor. And I'm not sure which way they're facing. They're in order. I'll keep my fingers crossed and we'll go for the best. So I'll just shut a few more windows here. It's pretty good, actually. Since there's possibilities of Nancy and I having the chance to move out to the west coast of Canada, to Victoria, where we'll be seeing these big fellows on a more frequent basis, I thought that was apropos to start off. But certainly, we've really enjoyed having you all come today to travel the distances that you have to spend this very special time with us. You're all very special people to us. And I hope that we'll have many enjoyable times together in the future. Now, I'd like to take you back now to 1960. I don't know if this machine will take you back there, but let's try. 1960, here we go. 1960 was a wonderful year because a special baby was born. This was a breathtaking baby. Just a gorgeous baby, big giant green eyes that just stare at you. A very inquisitive baby. A baby who grew up to be a wonderful child. Happy, playful, full of intrigue, full of interest in the world, full of life and full of vigor. And those qualities that she had as a very young child stayed with her throughout her entire life. And I think that I have to give a special thanks to Nancy's mom and dad, who instilled in her the qualities and allowed her to develop in that way that she really became the woman that she is today. Well, there she was, 1960. And it really was, she grew up to be a wonderful child. And if I can get this to come to the next one. She grew up, of course, in Halifax. And Halifax, as you know, Halifax, Nova Scotia is a port city, a beautiful port city. And growing up there, she had a great taste of sailing and very much an appreciation of water. And I think Nancy, more than anything, you would have to classify it as a true water baby. And Nancy's mom tells us that almost all the pictures that they had of her as a child were somehow involved with water. And you can see by the lovely smile and the lovely eyes that she has today that she just loved to be in water. And this was during the winter, of course, because Nancy would practice for hours and hours her strokes in the bathtub. So that when it came time in the summer and they could go to the summer cottage in Chester, she could really show off her stuff. Oh, and that's, look sideways and you'll see Nancy on the surfboard. And so Nancy really became a water baby, an incredible swimmer, a good athlete, and a tremendous appreciation for things close to the water. And I think it's no Let's see if this comes out. Is that upside down? I don't know.
No,
Anyway, it's
it's
no
good.
surprise, of course, that she swims like this. I'll get to the next one. There. It's also no surprise that the two dogs that she has are golden retrievers, which are obviously water dogs. But these are very special dogs, Oz and Teaser, because these are dogs that would much rather spend time in the water or looking at the water than be anywhere else in the entire world. And this is true wherever I've gone with them. And here's a picture of them that was taken this summer with my little niece Laura. As you can see, she's just slightly above their heads. And the dogs, of course, are close to water where they remain the whole summer. That was a very special thing, and I think a reflection of the fact that Nancy truly was a water baby herself. Now, of course, growing up in Halifax, which is slightly away from the hustle and bustle of some major metropolis, she had a tremendous appreciation of nature as well. She was close to nature and was able to get out to nature, and has grown up with a person with a tremendous appreciation and taste of the beautiful things in life that aren't man-made. And because of that, I think photography for her was a natural step beyond that. But she certainly grew up with an appreciation of animals small and animals large. There she is with an animal large. And that was taken actually just a short while ago at Andrea, who's left us now, her parents' farm just south of London, where we went horseback riding. And Nancy has a tremendous love of horses, and she originally took her horseback riding lessons in Halifax as well, and now is much better than me. And I'm always a bit frustrated because I'm working during the day, and when Nancy is off on her days off, she's taking all these riding lessons and constantly getting better and improving at a much greater rate than I am, and it just really isn't fair. But of course, Nancy is also, besides being a wonderfully warm person and caring person, she's quite athletic, as shown by her water skills and horseback riding. And one of her great loves, as she's already mentioned, of course, if we can get it to stick in, there you go, is, of course, sailing. And she's a tremendous sailor, and I think I have much to learn from her and some of her other friends who are already quite accomplished in this act. Well, having all these qualities, by this time, she was now 17 years old, and her parents decided in her absence that the best place for her to spend the summer was in this camp, Manitowoc, which was in northern Ontario, just north of Toronto. And coincidentally, Nancy actually didn't have any say in the matter. She was just going to camp. She had gone there for a few summers before to take tennis lessons, but now she was going there as a counselor. And because of her water skills, she was going to be on the waterfront staff. Now, coincidentally enough, I was going to the camp this summer, as was my stepbrother Jack. He was in the water ski staff, and I was in charge of canoeing. And that's really where I first met Nancy. That was 15 years ago. And I remember my first impressions of Nancy, besides the fact that here was this beautiful 17-year-old with long blonde hair, really looking very much like she is today, with these big golden eyes that just glowed life and love and energy, was what is this Roman Catholic girl from Halifax doing in this almost all Jewish camp, just north of Toronto? And for the life of me, I still don't quite understand it. But Mr. and Mrs. Kehoe, thank you very much. Well, as I said, my first appreciation of Nancy was her eyes. Now, Nancy has very special eyes, and anyone who has spent any time looking into Nancy's eyes know what I'm referring to. And throughout my whole life, and I'm not just saying this because today is our special day, throughout my whole life, when you meet certain people have attributes that you think, oh, this person had the best this, and this person had the best this, and this person was the best orator, etc., etc. To me, of all the people I've ever met in my life, Nancy had the most lovely, gorgeous, warm eyes of anyone I've ever met in my life. And that concept and that thought stayed with me my entire life until we re-met many years later. Because we had a nice, very light-hearted summer fling that summer. I was 19, she was 17. But of course, as so many things happen that occur in summertime, the end of summer happens, everybody's off and back in their normal environment, and we just went our separate ways. We went our separate ways for 13 years. And I entered into medical school shortly thereafter, and finishing that, moved away from Toronto. I haven't lived in Toronto for 10 years. And it was during that period of time that Nancy finished her high school, moved to Toronto, and actually embarked on a career in photography. I just wanted to add that, of course, during that summer, we spent many beautiful, not only moonlit nights, but many lovely sunsets as well, especially lying on top of turtle sailfish. I'm going to say is, of course, Nancy Toronto, and because of this tremendous love for nature and a great eye for things and an appreciation of natural beauty, I think photography for her was really a natural step. And Nancy really decided that, I mean, Nancy's a very, very creative person, but she's not that talented, you know, given a drawing pencil and a paper, that she can't draw you the best picture. But she's incredibly talented at arranging pictures and visions in her head, and hence the natural talent for photography. So she moved to Toronto, and this was a tremendous growing experience for her, a chance to, you know, be away from home for the first time, be self-sufficient, self-supportive, and in Nancy's usual energetic fashion, she carried on in tremendous fashion, at times carrying 3 jobs at once on top of her photography to try to make ends meet. So you can imagine this girl running all the time, and she really hasn't stopped up till today. Now, in her earlier years, of course, there's some people who are represented here today, especially Maria and Bianca, who are friends of Nancy's since they were this high. Maria was in Nancy's class for 13 years, all through grade school and high school. And there's some special people here today who also are from this period of time when Nancy moved to Toronto, and Chris, I think, really exemplifies that as well, where Nancy became very close. And in photography school, she met a very, very special person who has been extremely supportive for her and Nancy back, and that is Sue. And I think Sue remains an extremely close friend of Nancy and will be for life. And I certainly appreciate welcoming all of you into our household at any time. Now, Nancy went through photography school in Toronto, and I think really excelled at that, and she was quite good. But it became very plain, this is the end of the 80s, recession was starting to hit Toronto, and I mean, everybody who was in any type of these creative fields was feeling the pinch. Construction, architecture, photography, and especially as a woman photographer in a field that, let's be honest, is still, you know, wholly manly controlled. Things were very tough, and it became tougher and tougher for Nancy to make ends meet. And I think it dawned on her at that time that photography then for her would perhaps become a great hobby, and a hobby that she could excel in, and that she would have to embark on another career. And Nancy's skills, besides her appreciation of nature and her love of photography, was just people, because Nancy truly is a people person. She's wonderfully warm, she's empathetic, and she just comes across as a tremendously caring, energetic, and loving person. And I think anyone would say that the natural progression of that is somebody who looks after other people who are in those needs, people who are sick. Nancy decided to embark on a career in nursing. She went back to Halifax, did her nursing degree, and that wasn't enough. After she did her nursing degree, rather than jumping out and starting off nursing, she said, well, I deserve this, now is my time for a holiday, and she whipped off to Europe for 6 months of travel, much to the chagrin of her parents, who said, you just have a degree, now go out and make some money, you know. But no, Nancy had to go off on her world travels, and I think Nancy and I both share this tremendous love of travel and appreciation of other cultures and seeing new things. Finally, Nancy finished her nursing degree, moved back to Halifax after spending some time in Toronto. And I think, again, it was natural that she would take up nursing children, because I think children to all of us represent a very special thing. An innocence, a tremendous love of life, a tremendous energy, no matter what's happening to them at the time. And anyone who spends time dealing with the health of children, you know, has a tremendous appreciation of their healing capabilities. So, of course, Nancy, I just also want to mention that her time in Toronto was the time that she bought her first dog, Teaser, who's now, he's about 10 years old now, Teaser. The most tremendous golden retriever animal that I've ever seen. Very stately. He seems to have a maturity really beyond his years, and he really seems to understand all things that are going on around him at all the time and paces himself appropriately. And despite Nancy's energy and running around like mad, this dog just sort of looks at her and says, I don't know why you have so much energy, I'm going to sleep. And anyway, he controls himself quite nicely. But as I said, Nancy went on to the care of children, and I think that in her role as nursing, not only in Halifax, but especially since she's come now to work at Alder Hill Hospital in Liverpool, she's received nothing but regards and congratulations, not only from the other nurses, but especially from the parents. And commonly she's coming home with cards and boxes of chocolates from parents who are just so appreciative of the empathy and energy and information that she can pass on to them and making people feel very warm and comfortable. And I think she does that with everybody here today. Well, okay, so that's Nancy up to that point in time. We didn't see each other
for all of those years. And during that period of time, of course, I was on my own round-the-world trips. I returned from New Zealand via Kenya, via Thailand, to start up my surgical training in Halifax. Now, when I came back to Halifax, I knew that Nancy Kehoe, this was a name from way back, was a girl from Halifax. Now, unfortunately, for the first couple years that I was in Halifax, Nancy was living in Toronto. And when I asked some of my buddies who were in surgery at that time and people working in the hospitals, did they know this girl Nancy Kehoe? She was very popular in Halifax, and everybody said, oh yes, of course we know Nancy Kehoe. She's living in Toronto. So I said, oh well, c'est la vie, I missed my chance, and I'll just carry on. So I went on merrily my way in Halifax, and I never bothered looking in the phone book to see if there was a Nancy Kehoe, because everybody had told me that she was living in Toronto. And it never occurred to me that she might actually move back to Halifax. Well, this is exactly what happened. During my second year of my training, Nancy moved back to Halifax, and we didn't know that we were both living in Halifax, and we were living literally, I would say, within about 5 blocks of each other. And not only that, we shared many of the same friends. She was working in the children's hospital, and I hadn't done my rotation to the children's hospital yet, so I hadn't actually met her, although she was in nursing and I was in medicine. And it wasn't until Nancy actually went back to Toronto just for Christmas, ran into some friends that we both know, who mentioned to Nancy that I was working in Halifax. And she said, no way, I would have met him by now. But anyway, Nancy came back to Halifax, looked up in the phone book, and sure enough, Eric Friedman existed, called me up, and that was really the beginning of a wonderful relationship. And I remember the first time that she called me up, and we talked for a very long time, reminiscing, and I was thinking in my own mind, what does this girl look like now? Because we hadn't seen each other for all these years. And in my own mind, there was this girl with long blonde hair, these big, vivid, gorgeous warm eyes. And I said, if she looks like that, well, that'll just be marvelous. And of course, when I saw her, that's exactly how she looked. But in between those years, she had changed her hairstyle. She had red hair for a while, short hair, all kinds of things. But in my own memory, that's the way she looked. And of course, that's the way I see her today. And that's the way I hope it remains. So, and actually, is apropos to being Canadians, the thing Canadians do best in the winter is what? We went out ice skating. So we planned to go out ice skating that first night. And Bianca Lang was there that first night that we met. And I was skating around, we said we'd meet at 8, and I was skating around, and there was, it was packed full of people. And I wasn't sure if I would recognize her, because I hadn't seen her for all these years. And every time I would skate up to a girl, I sort of give her the eye and say, is that Nancy? And I really couldn't be sure, but nobody definitely looked familiar. And they were late coming, and I was skating around for about 15 minutes, and I was becoming disheartened, saying, maybe she's actually here. I don't recognize her, and she doesn't recognize me, we'll never meet again. But sure enough, as I was skating around, these people came in and marched in. High up in the stands, these 2 girls were lacing on their skates, and I looked up, and I stopped. I just looked at them, and there was Nancy, and our eyes met. And I think she recognized me immediately. And that was really the start of what's become a lovely relationship. That evening, we went out to what I would call the Duck, which is what people in Halifax would call their local watering hole. And Kevin Bush was there. And what was very interesting about that is, we went to this place where everybody went to drink in Halifax. And we were having some beers. And there I was, introducing Nancy to people. Oh, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. She knew all these people already. And it was really incredible that the number of friends that we actually shared and people that we knew, that before we even introduced them, already knew each other. And in fact, David Rydup was one of the first people. When Nancy returned to Halifax after Toronto, she started asking around everybody that she knew in medicine, did they know this Eric Friedman? And David Rydup happened to be rotating through the Children's Hospital that time, and Nancy asked David, do you know this Eric Friedman? And David said, oh, yeah, of course. And anyway, that would go from there. So we went up to our local watering hole, and then we started dating. Nancy asked me to see if I wanted to have dance lessons with her. And I said yes, it was something I've always wanted to do. And what occurred to me as time went on was that everything I suggested and everything she suggested in terms of either types of food to eat or places to go were things that we both really enjoyed. And we really seemed to share the same loves in life and have the very same enjoyments. Now, having said that, we're both very individualistic people, very strong personalities. And getting Nancy to do something that she doesn't want to do is very much like tying a Tyrannosaurus Rex to the back of the and taking him somewhere he doesn't want to go. And in the first few months of our relationship, this was very much what it was like. And there was this real struggle, this real power struggle. Because in my relationships in the past, I'd been the boss, and if I didn't want to see them that day, that was fine, and I called them up when I wanted to see them. And in Nancy's relationship, she was the boss, and if she didn't want to see them that day, and so on. And this became an element of real controversy. It was a real power struggle. And there's no doubt that in the ensuing months, that a number of jousting episodes did occur. But having said that, behind all the battlements that we have, and that we still have today, and Kevin was with us the other day, we were having a fight in the car over something ridiculous. Behind all that, there was a special respect for each other, and a special love that developed. And the best way I can describe that is probably through this picture. Because both of us have a tremendous love of dogs, and here's two little puppy loves. Isn't that sweet? So over these next ensuing months, a tremendous love really did develop. And actually, it was fairly early on in our relationship. Nancy went on a holiday to the Dominican Republic. And we had just been going out perhaps a month or so. And she disappeared, and she was gone for a week. And I missed her tremendously. And I was saying, this is a bit unusual here. You don't usually miss them when they're gone. You usually out enjoying yourself. Anyway, Nancy came back, and she brought back for me a gift, which no girl had ever brought back for me before in my life. And she brought back for me a machete in this leather sheath from the Dominican Republic, a handmade type of thing. And I said to myself, this woman understands me. Nobody else in the world would go away and bring me back such an article. And I said, this is this very special woman who can do this for me and bring this back for me. And from there, the relationship just really took off, and hence went into that type of situation. Well, fine and dandy, we became closer as the time went on, and ups and downs. I mean, we were constantly fighting and battling our heads together. But it became very plain to me that this was potentially, not definitely, but potentially a woman who I could spend a lot of time with. And we came to the agreement that, well, maybe Nancy should come home and meet my family. Well, she did that. And of course, my family gave her quite an eyeing over, saying, who is this girl from Halifax? But within short order, of course, as I mentioned, Nancy has this warm, glowing personality, and she was accepted by our tribe as one of them. Well, the hardest thing in my life was not saying yes today, because that was a decision I made many months ago. The hardest decision of my life was Nancy the one for me? Was this a woman that I could spend the rest of my life with, be devoted to, develop a relationship with, a potential family, and go on all these travels and adventures together, despite the fact that we were constantly knocking heads? And to tell you the truth, that was a very hard thing for me to go through, and I'm sure Nancy as well. But I finally came to the manly decision that, yes, I'll do it. I'll do it. So, the next slide, of course, is showing, move it over a bit. The day I decided to ask Nancy to marry me was the most romantic night of my life. The moon was showing, we had glasses of champagne, beautiful dinner, sitting in the Champs-Élysées, we had a stroll by the Eiffel Tower, and it was it. No, I'm actually exaggerating, aren't I? It wasn't like that at all. In fact, I chickened out completely. There we are. We were in a medical conference in Washington. Nancy had come down with me, and I was there doing it at a urology conference. And this was the time when Nancy had to get back to her nursing program, and there was a couple more days in the conference, and I was staying in Washington. And I had purchased this ring about a month before, and just I was going crazy. I just couldn't bring myself to give it to her. I didn't know what was the time. What do I say? Is this the end of my life? What's happening? So we were at this conference. We had a wonderful time and spent time with very good friends. And at that moment when I was actually late to go at the door, and Nancy was in the shower, getting ready to jump out so she could catch her plane back to Halifax, I said, okay, this is it. And there I was, pacing up and down, with this ring in my hand. It actually was the box all wrapped up with a nice little ribbon and everything. Nancy was still in the shower, and I was saying, what do I do? What do I do? And finally she came out of the shower, and by this time I was quite late. And besides that, I was quite gutless. And I had nothing to say. And for someone who people who know me would usually say, well, Eric, that's very surprising. I really had nothing to say. And I gave her this box, this little box with a bow on it, with kind of a card saying, oh, I think we're wonderful together, and, you know, blah, 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 mushy stuff. And I walked out the door and slammed it behind me and went off to my medical conference. Didn't think anything of it. I never saw her face. I never saw her open it. I didn't know really what would be her initial reaction. But one thing I knew in my heart was her answer, even before she said it. And her answer, of course, was yes. Now, and I knew it was yes because that night when I got back to my hotel room, there was a message that a Mrs. Friedman had called. And I thought that was Nancy's apropos way of saying that was her answer. And it really took off from then, but as anyone who knew me in Halifax, I had a month left of my surgical training program when after we got engaged. And I denied to absolutely everybody I met that I was engaged. People come up to me and said, oh, Eric, I've just heard from Nancy, isn't that wonderful news? And I sort of looked at them with a totally blank look, like, what do you mean? And people were bewildered, and they didn't know how to take this, but I really wanted to sort of, you know, play it down. Anyway, that's how we got engaged, and that was really the beginning of life. And of course, we then came to England. And in England, we very much missed all of our friends back home, and all of you included. And in particular, two special people that I became very close to this summer, who spent almost all of their waking hours with me. And we thought, well, here we are in England. Wouldn't this be a wonderful time and an excuse to have all our friends come back and join us? So we decided to have this event today. And I want to thank Nancy especially for the tremendous organizational skills which have shown forth today in the success. But as the day drew nearer, you know, towards the wedding, you know, of course I was the picture of calmness. You know, calm, cool, collected, taking everything in stride, never getting excited about anything, because I knew, of course, that this was, no, let's go back. Let's see if that slide will come through again. Maybe it won't. That's the best slide of the whole thing. Let me do one thing. Ah, okay, there we go. So there it was. Stay there. Be quiet. Well, you won't get the whole picture, but there it was, calm, cool, and collective as the hours drew near for the wedding. And I said, "Wait, is this really what I want to do? I mean, am I crazy?" And the answer was yes, because of course I was in love. Now, as the times came close to the wedding, I said, "Well, Eric, you know all about weddings. You know, I've marched in about 5 weddings. I've been ushers in lots of weddings. Been best man at a couple weddings." And I said, "Eric, what do you know about weddings?" Absolutely nothing. All the traditions, all the arrangements, all the superstition, everything that involves around the wedding, I absolutely knew zilch all. And so I went back to the books and started doing research on what makes up a wedding. Where do all these traditions that we take for granted, the white dress, the cake, etc., where do they all come from? Or where do they originate from? And after I did all this, I said, this is very interesting. And so I just thought I'd like to share some of the tidbits with you today. You can accept my indulgence. There. Now, first of all, that's not really, you missed the end of that. Is that on there? There we go. I looked up the definitions of some things. The definition of wedding actually comes from Old High German "Wedigen," which was the term to give a pledge. And interestingly enough, the Old French term to give a pledge was "gager," and hence the term "engaged" came from there. So I thought it was very interesting that wedding and engaged actually come from the same original origins. Well, having said that, I think all of us today appreciate the fact that what we consider a wedding is that special pledge between a man and a woman that envelops both love and the legal side of things. I think everybody does have an appreciation for that. Next. As I say, you have to put up with this machine. Stay there. Well, you can see that that's a picture of a bunch of babies, all right? Anyway, I was going to say, of course, the idea behind a wedding, biblically, historically, through all time, has been the fulfillment of what is put out in the Bible, which is be fruitful, and multiply. And that's the whole purpose behind weddings, is going back as far as possible. But the realities behind that is that we accept that weddings today are really based on love between man and women. And that is a very recent concept. It's actually a concept that has just grown up since the spread of Christianity through the world. Because prior to that, love had never anything to do with weddings and marriage. And still today in many cultures, love has nothing to do with the joining of man and woman in this union. Because love, as I said, really didn't have anything to do with it. And the bonding had much more to do with many other things. This machine is starting to phase out on me, isn't it? We'll get through it, don't worry. I was going to say that the bonding of two people together, historically, has had much more to do with money and wealth, a place in society, forming new allegiances between different peoples, than anything to do with love at all. And most of the royal marriages, historically, have all been related to that. Nothing to do with love whatsoever. Well, can you see that? Now, of course, there's an old saying that from Arabic, if you translate it, meaning that a woman with an ample diary of camels becomes much more beautiful. And I think that's the gist of the way relationships were in the beginning. That relationships were either built on bonds between warring tribes, or in fact you would go out and just capture your bride. And capturing the bride, and a lot of the things that have built up from that today, are what makes up the basis of a lot of the traditions that we experience today in modern weddings. Believe it or not. The Romans, and Mr. Rickwood will say, I'm always going on about these Romans. The Romans and their way that they spread their education and their culture throughout the so-called modern world of their time has a lot to do actually with our traditions that we so-called speak about weddings. One of the major Roman traditions was of course the ring. Because in old Rome, in ancient Rome, the ring was the real symbol of power. And Caesar had his ring, and all the centurions had their rings, and everybody had a special ring. So the ring was a real meaning of power. And historically, of course, there was always something given. After the groups that were deciding to join these two people together, with no consolation of the people, of course, decided to join these two people together, there was some monetary value that was passed back and forth. And in Rome, the seal of a ring was truly the seal of the final agreement. And hence, it became custom that once man and wife agreed to marry, the man would give the woman a ring in advance, which hence is our engagement ring, as the seal that this was an agreement that was going to go forth. And therefore, the engagement ring really comes from the time of Rome. Rings, of course, are very important for other reasons. This didn't come out too well, but it's a variety of different types of rings. The rings are not only envelop the engagement, or the early part of the relationship, but also at the time of the sharing of rings, as we did today. And of course, that is symbolic of the sharing of vows. And the ring itself, which of course is a ring that has no beginning and no end, is symbolic of the love that is continuous throughout the life of those two people who are joined together. And the Romans were appreciative of this. And Nancy also was very appreciative of this. And as a child, Nancy loved playing with gold rings. And big ones, small ones, and here she is with a fairly large-sized one. And this one she was quite small because now, of course, that would just fit in her finger. But the ring was also very important because, of course, it's placed on the fourth finger of the left hand. Now, being left-handed, I'm going to wear my ring on the right hand because it's out of the way. But most people wear it on their left hand. Now, why should that be? I mean, where did this fourth finger in the left hand come from? Well, if you go back historically, it was believed in the time of ancient Greece and ancient Rome that there was a vein that went directly from the fourth finger directly to the heart. A straight pathway, as outlined here. And in fact, interestingly enough, if you go back into Chinese literature, one of the acupuncture points for chest pain is the fourth finger of the left hand. there must be something to it, because these old guys knew what they were doing. It wasn't all based on false hopes. And it was also interesting that the physicians in ancient Rome and Greece, when they were preparing their medicines in the apothecary, would stir their medicines with the fourth finger of their left hand, because that finger had that special power from within. And I think today we're both sharing, at least on our fourth finger anyway, our rings, and that has special meaning for us. Now, of course, in the early engagement period in Rome, they would give a ring. But historically, after the spread of Christianity, when it became evident that if a man loved a woman, that they could join without the families saying yes or no, that it became traditional for the man to give the woman traditional gifts of love, to express that the love was there and the love could grow, and there was certainly potential fruitfulness for a long-standing relationship. And because we're in Wales, I put up this slide because these are what's called Welsh love spoons. And traditionally, the young boy would carve these by hand, and all the rings and everything are always made out of one long piece of wood. And they would carve these by hand, and they would have different meanings. Of course, the two hearts together were hearts locked in love, and the links of a chain were meaning that you were linked together forever. And there was a variety of other things, of course. But these would be given from man to woman, even before the engagement, as a true sign of love. And there was many, in each culture, these type of symbolisms existed. Now, I went back to the literature, besides the aspects of old Rome that have to do with our modern weddings, and there's a variety of other ones that I'll just come to briefly. It struck me that there was two major portions of the wedding, that very little of them had to do with religion, one way or the other, in terms of our modern Western wedding. And the two portions were, number one, the medieval times lent forth a tremendous feeling of superstition and danger and evil that would surround the time of a wedding, which was historically, of course, a very happy, loving day. The other thing was that a lot of the traditions of weddings stem from the time when brides were captured, when they had no say in the matter and they were just picked up and captured. And of course, some of the traditions that we have today stem from that point of view. And of course, sometimes all the best men and ushers carrying the bride away. And historically, also in Wales, really up to about the 18th century, there was something called the horse wedding. And what would happen? The grooms of people, and sometimes there would be hundreds of them, would all get together and they would descend on the bride's house, all riding horses at high speed. And of course, the bride's family would be in hiding. The bride would have a number of bridesmaids who were there for her protection. And that was really the purpose of the bridesmaids originally. And sometimes even the bride would be disguised as one of the bridesmaids, so they wouldn't know which one to take and steal away. But of course, this all was early tradition, and eventually what happened, the groom's team would come in, and finally they would let them in, or they would bribe the bridesmaids. And what comes from that is commonly gifts to the bridesmaids or a toast to the bridesmaids from the groom. And that's his thanks to the bridesmaids for giving up the bride to him. And that all stems from this early period of time. So the bride would then ride away with the groom would ride away with his new bride, and the family of the bride would follow closely thereafter, but never quite catch up, always allowing them to get to the church on time and follow through with the ceremony. And this, as I say, was a tradition that carried on for many, many years. And a lot of that stems from this period of time. The fact that the bride has bridesmaids for her protection, and the groom has a best man and ushers for his protection, stems from that early period of time. Now, in terms of mysticism, many different cultures have always expressed a tremendous mysticism and spirit around the time of weddings. And Western society is really no different. And especially during the Middle Ages, the so-called Dark Ages, when people really had very little to cling on besides their religion and mysticism, a lot of these traditions arose. One of them was a way to drive away evil spirits and demons, which were thought to dwell upon wedding ceremonies. And banging loud noises, historically, has always been a way to drive away evil spirits. And henceforth, we get the ringing of the church bells during wedding. We get people honking their car horns during wedding. We get people tying cans on the back of their car so they would rattle and everything as the people drove away. And back in the times when people would carry guns, and the groom would have his whole entourage, they would usually carry guns and oftentimes fire a rifle shot into the air as a way of scaring away the evil demons. Other things that arose from the time of the evil demons were the fact that they were always worried that someone would be trying to either abduct the bride or the groom or assassinate them. And so the bride and the groom took on the dress of everybody else who was involved with the wedding party. I mean, did you ever wonder why it was that the groom and all the ushers looked the same, and the bride, of course, nowadays wears a white dress, but historically didn't, and they all looked the same? And the reason was that if someone wanted to plan, and they would always move together as a tight-knit group wherever they went, and the reason was that if someone wanted to plan an attack and steal the bride or kill somebody involved in the wedding party, chances are they'd hit the wrong person or steal the wrong person. And that's also part of this mysticism and danger that's now developed into modern tradition for us. And here they are, all in the wedding party, and the question is, which one really is the groom? And he may be standing beside the bride, but you don't know. Now, other traditions, of course, have to do with good luck involved with the wedding, because it's a long life that people hope to live together, and I think, especially in today's society, people need a lot of luck. So something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and a silver sixpence in your shoe. How many knew that last line? I didn't before I looked this up. Everyone knows the first little bit. And of course, what is the symbolic of this? Something old, of course, is your ties with your tribe, your ties with your community. Something new, obviously, because you're embarking on a brand new life with that person, and that's what it's symbolic of. Something borrowed, again, because it's your dependence on not only your family but your community. And we have to remember that early on in the traditions of marriage, when people were agrarian, marriages always occurred after the harvest or in the wintertime. Because during the other seasons, people were much too busy to take time off to have these big wedding feasts. And wedding feasts traditionally would go on for a week. And that, of course, has all changed today. Now that since the Industrial Revolution, people moved to cities, you were working for other people, and you couldn't just take off a week anytime you wanted when somebody was getting married. So weddings today have now become condensed versions of what really used to be very long feasts and festival occasions. Something blue. Blue is the sign of truth and honesty and loyalty. And of course, you're being loyal to your new mate for the rest of your life. And a silver sixpence in your shoe is symbolic that the hope is that for the rest of your life, you will have wealth and you'll be comfort and have a roof over your home. And I certainly hope, Nancy, that for us that will be true. Other symbolisms of luck. Let's back up here.
Are we going to have a test on this tonight?
I'll be finished in a second. Now, other traditional symbolisms of luck, especially in England, have been in the morning of your wedding ceremony. You're on your way to the wedding, seeing a lamb, and of course, a lamb is the sign of new life springing forth, a whole new generation coming up. What better chance for Nancy to see a lamb than come to Wales in the spring? I mean, I said, unless we go to New Zealand, I mean, this has got to be the next thing. Other symbolisms of luck, of course, are the horseshoe. And the horseshoe is symbolic for us in particular, not only because it's a sign of good luck, and it always has to be facing upright to keep the luck in. You don't hold the horseshoe upside down so all the luck falls out.
And I very, very sweetly received 2 of those this morning from a very dear little boy from the bed and breakfast that we were staying in last night. He delivered them to Brighton Ribbons.
And a lot of times, traditionally, horseshoes will actually be on the cake as well, as a sign of luck. This is actually a photo. Too bad Andrea's not here. It's a photo of one of the horses from her farms that I received when I was down there. But I was going to say that shoes are important too, because shoes historically were not only symbols of luck, because they held you upright, they kept you dry, but they were not only symbols of luck, they were also symbols of power and dominance. And also, a very historical thing was that during the time of the wedding, the bride's father would give the groom one of his shoes. Because when they were growing up, of course, the bride's father would beat the kid with the shoe, and that was the way he had his dominance over her. And the idea was to give this to the new husband so he could continue on in that dominance.
But I'm glad that didn't happen.
Not yet. And it was interesting that during the Middle Ages, it became part of the tradition of weddings, because shoes were symbols of luck, that people would, instead of throwing rice and confetti and things as we did today, people would actually throw shoes And of course, sometimes this can be quite dangerous for the bride and the groom, you know, who are walking along. Now, where does the classic white wedding come from? When we think of a wedding, we think of the classic white wedding. The bride in this beautiful, flowing, lovely gown as Nancy was in today. That's a very new tradition. In fact, Queen Victoria was the one who popularized the idea. So before then, people actually didn't buy new dresses for their wedding. They wore their nice clothes that they had already. People didn't afford to go and spend all these, amounts of dollars on weddings that happen today. And that's really the origins of the classic white wedding. It's from that era. Now, what about, I don't know if that's a very good focus for them, they're throwing things at these people. What about the traditions of throwing things at the bride and groom besides shoes? Where does that stem from? Well, that goes back, of course, to our old friends, the Romans. And in ancient Rome, flowers, fruits, and nuts were not only signs of fertility, and this is, of course, an ancient fertility rite, in fact, that every married couple goes through when people throw things at them. But they were not only matters of fertility, but they were things of luck, and they were signs of new life stemming forth. And the apple and the seed and the acorn had tremendous symbolism for the ancient Romans. So, of course, today we had some flower petals there, which is very nice. But today, of course, we've extended that to rice. And it's a sign of fertility, which is really what we were going through. And I hope you were all aware that this was long grain rice that I had given up. Now, how about the wedding cake? Of course, that slides in backwards. Sorry, I missed that one. The wedding cake, ours isn't a traditional wedding cake for a couple reasons. Number one, it's not layered. And number two, it's not fruitcake. And the reasons are, there wasn't enough people here, number one, and number two, I don't like fruitcake. But the real traditions of wedding cakes are that they're fruit with icing. Now, where did that come from? Again, we have to go back to ancient Rome. And interestingly enough, in Roman times, there was two cakes that were given out when people were getting married. There was a groom's cake, which was a hard fruit loaf type of cake. And there was the bride's cake, which was light spun sugar. And so today's wedding cake, in fact, is a combination of the two put together. But that's actually where the traditions come from. Now, of course, we're beyond all that now, and we're no sense talking about the traditions of the wedding, because here we are today, and Nancy, despite the fact that you and I are relative nonconformists, I think we've actually had a reasonably traditional wedding here today, and I want to congratulate you on that. But marriage can be bliss, or marriage can be battle. And I think it's important when one steps out on on our wedding day now and goes forth in life that we have a strong appreciation of that. And I think it's also important for us to know who's going to be the boss. Because a lot of what marriage is all about really is a power struggle. And Nancy and I are very powerful people, not only singly but together. And I also started reading a little bit about what are the traditions of the wedding night and this power struggle that goes on. And of course, as I said, the traditional carrying of the bride over the threshold stems from the time of when brides were just stolen. But other things, interestingly enough, in other cultures, have a lot of symbolism. Now, in Morocco, and Paul will be very interested in this because his wife is of Moroccan origin, traditionally at a Moroccan wedding, when the husband comes to meet his wife at night, they both hold slippers. And whoever whacks the first one first is the one that will dominate the other one for life. In Scandinavia, the woman goes out of her way. The woman has a special scarf that she has while she's married. And the woman goes out of her way to accidentally drop the scarf so that her new husband will pick up the scarf. If she can do that and trick him into picking up the scarf, of course that's symbolic. He'll be breaking his back for her for the rest of his life. In India, there's a tradition where the brides, first of all, when they're married, the brides wear a scarf and they're tied onto the groom. And that, of course, stems back from the time the brides were taken away. But then when the bride and the groom come together in the evenings, they actually slap each other and say some symbolic words, as also symbolic of a meaning of dominance. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you was what happens in Russia. My mother was from Russia. And in traditional Russian weddings, and I know this is true because one of the anesthetists at our hospital has just come in from Russia, and I asked him, when you got married, did you do this? And he said, oh, of course. And in Russia, what's traditional is the woman gives the husband a whip that she has constructed herself. And on the wedding night, the husband, not with pain, but symbolically, whips the woman 3 times. Each time saying, I love thee like my soul, but I whip thee like my cloak. And I think that stems forth from a time when, of course, men dominated the household. At least they thought they did. And all of these traditions sprung up. So Nancy, tonight, you're really
Nice to
not
know they're just
sure.
tradition.
You're really not sure which one I'm going to pull on you. Now, I'd like to finish off just now because I have some telegrams that I'd like to share with you. The first telegram is from 2 special people that we love very dearly. We would have really liked to have here tonight. Dear Mum, we sorry we can't swim that far. We can hardly wait till you get home because we love our new daddy too. Signed, Teaser and Oz from Nova Scotia. There's a couple other ones that I'm going to whip through. This is a fax message to the wedding at Ruthin Castle. To Nancy and Eric of Wales, congratulations with their love and special wishes from Hugh and Anne and the bun. Or the bun. Is it the bun?
I think it's the bun in the oven that's in.
Oh, the bun in the oven. Yes, she's expecting very soon. Very good. I'll bore you with a few other ones that you can put up with. If not, you can leave. Okay, we're very sorry we could not be with you. Congratulations, all the best wishes. Our love, Alex and Jenny from Toronto. Very good friends in Toronto. There's another one. Dearest Nancy and Eric, oh happy day, love and happiness to you today and forever. Wish we could be there to celebrate. We send good cheer and a wedding gift to follow. Hugs and smiles, Jane and Laura. And that's from Halifax. A couple more. Hang with me. You've been very patient so far. I know you want to get out in the sunshine. Eric and Nancy, our thoughts are with you. Please call by June 12th with your recommendation. We love you both dearly, Verna and George. These are 2 very good friends of ours who are living in Calgary. They're getting married on June 12th, and what they're saying is, what's our recommendation about what they should be doing? Almost there, almost there. This one. Nancy and Eric, congratulations, best wishes, much love from Pat, Buzz, and family. I presume that's coming from Ottawa.
That is coming from.
Yes. Very good. International telegrams here. Get them in business. One more. Have you finished your cake and coffee? Or anything else? All right. Here we go. Let's see. Who's this from? It's a long card. I can't read the whole thing. It's not signed. It's not signed. Oh, there it is. It's at the back. Where else would it be? Marriage is made of all the above, which is all the previous cards. But most of all, marriage is love. Isn't that nice? And that's from All the Best for the Future from Dot, Bolger, and Sandra, and that's from the Institute of Child Health. That's some of the people I work with. Other people who have wished us our best wishes are some of the people from the theater staff or the operating room that I work with. And the head sister there actually constructed the table center, which is up at the top, which is, to my request, is a little table center constructed of acorns and nuts and dried flowers. Of course, symbolic of fertility and good luck, as the Romans would have it. And just to finish off here, Nancy, we're in Wales, and it's symbolic of my long-standing love to you. The interlocked hearts forever, and the chains that were linked forever together. This is for you. I just want to say you put on a tremendous wedding today, and we're very much appreciative. And this is my toast to my lovely wife, and this is the last slide, I assure you. Bottoms up. I just wanted to add in a few more things. Nothing. No,
Eric, can we see some of those again?
For those of you who are joining us tonight, the medieval feast goes on at 8 o'clock, and it's not at the main entrance of the castle. If you're facing the castle, it's to the right-hand side of the parking lot. There's a separate entrance into the medieval feast. If we meet, assuming it's nice weather like it is right now and it remains that way tonight, if we meet around the front of the castle or outside, say sometime around 7:30 or 7:45, then we can all drift in together. And until that time, you're completely free to explore lovely Rutland and go up to the craft center and walk in the hills if you want, because it looks like it's a beautiful day and I've taken up too much of your time. Thanks very much for coming today and joining us.
You don't look like king and queen, you look like two witches.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's great.
Well, I think we should.
Yeah, they're telling us to move. We better stand still long enough for us to get pictures.
That's good. That's good.
Look at my head. My head.
Hold still a minute.
My dad is not on yet, so I
Eric will take.
And in the true language of the great princes of Britain, I bid you croissant, welcome. You have all journeyed to this ancient outpost in the kingdom of Powers, to this castle set on a hill, which legend tells was created by towering boulders thrown by two giants from opposing hills. Whether or not you believe this to be a load of lies, it is true to say the castle was built by Reginald de Grey on the commission of Edward I to quell a nonconformist Welsh. Although the castle was never defeated, the Baron de Grey was captured and held to ransom by the famous Welsh patriot Owain Glyndŵr, whose ransom terms were so great that the Grey family never completely recovered. If all the histories of these walls could tell were now retold, my voice would soon be buried in the rumblings of uneasy bellies. And so with many tales still unrelated, I offer you the safety of this household. We hope that in sharing the dignity and romance of our historic past, that you will enjoy not only our hospitality, but also those qualities which we are proud to feel make us Welsh. The ladies of the court will now lead you to your places at the Baron's table, where you will find a goblet of mead, ready for the toast of the evening, which is Iechyd da, Heroes.
My Lady Elizabeth. Now, my most gracious guests, before you enter the banqueting hall, one or two very brief remarks. The first regards the candles on the table, which you will see are quite large and do hold some very hot wax. Please take care of those. Cameras are permitted in the banqueting hall, and here, of course, video recorders, please, not in the banqueting hall. Smoking is permitted here in the presence room. Again, not. Please don't smoke in the banqueting hall. Now, if you have the glasses you have, sir, kindly finish the drinks and leave those glasses here. Please don't take glasses into the banqueting hall with you. Now, we have prearranged the seating to keep, obviously, groups and families and parties together. If you will come forward in the order which I shall now call you, we shall quickly seat you for tonight's medieval banquet. I now have great pleasure in calling upon your Baron and Baroness for the evening to take their places in the banqueting hall, my Lord and Lady Freedman.
My lords and ladies, ma'am.
All right, my lady, you'll have plenty of time to do that. My lords and ladies, there. The Lady Elizabeth will now describe the form your banquet is to take.
The drink in your goblet is mead, on the goblet, which is a Welsh name, and the wine which later would be put into your pewter goblets is Hippocras. Wine and mead were very popular beverages in the 15th century. Mead was made by boiling fermented honey and water. This was taken, particularly by young married couples, in the belief that it was good for virility and fertility.
What a start! My lord, now, could I have a gown? I'll have the gown now and later.
Set up a
The mead was drunk for 1 month after the wedding, hence the expression honeymoon.
You see,
Daggers are provided for you to cook your food with, and if you have any fingers left, you may cleanse them in the spiced waters of the finger bowls.
I think you got finger bowls. We usually get some natty drinks to finger bowls. My lords and ladies, as you are dining medieval style this evening, we would request at the end of each course you would kindly pass your bowls and platters along to the ends of the tables, where the remains will be put into alms dishes and given to the poor, wretched prisoners in the dungeon prison. We would also like to inform you that the pewter goblets that are placed on your tables, these do not leave the banquet. If they should disappear for some reason, then my Lord Baron will prepare a rack. Now, your first remove this evening is called calm. This is a soup made from leeks and carrots and other fine vegetables, seasoned with delicate peppers, with butter and cream egg. The bread that will be placed on your table, that is called manchet, and that is made from a specially prepared wholemeal baked on an open fire. Before this is served, I would respectfully ask for your silence, please, while our Lord Baron kindly says grace.
Good ladies and gentlemen, knights, it's a real honor that we are all here together, and we bow our heads in prayer that we will be blessed with this wonderful meal and safety for years to come within this castle. Amen.
Bring on, my lords,
Now do have yourselves to the bread. Where's your finger bowl? You'll be sharing a finger bowl. The finger bowl. Oh, very Bread is very nice bread.
Lots of notice to get time off.
We do hope you've enjoyed your meal. And we're delighted so many of you have survived it. And I'm sure a big thank you to the ladies of the court who've served you. I'd like to introduce you to my Lord of many parts, Lord Hugh Jones. Hugh, please. And also to my Lord is going to sing you some lovely songs that he learnt in his mother's knee and low joints. My Lord and Bob Roberts, good evening. All of us together. A troop of strolling players are we, with very little flavor of me. A very simple man who knows about the land, is rising corner of the golden tree. It walks a new distraction of me, a rhythmic concentration of me, with just a basic crew that never seems to draw, but on the finest principality. We don't have everything, we make flags and it comes, then on to Christmas, lots and lots of Christmas. Honey, stop, it's banger, that's how we always treat it. We jolly bird, holly bird, and young again. Well, we don't have everything, we make flags and it comes, then on to Christmas, lots of gals and Christmas. Honey, stop, it's banger, that's how we always treat it. If they parade or coming, then young again. Well, we don't have everything, we make flags and it comes, then on to Christmas, lots of chance. That's how we always get it. No Daggery, no Sophie, and no again. Yeah, everything. I'll eat your heart out, cold. Well, my lords and ladies, I'm sure that most of you, or some of you, well, both of you will have heard of the bard of Avon, and we're particularly proud of the way he translated from the original Welsh. He wrote music be the food of life. No? Nobody knows anything about it. Thank you, my lady, a little late, but thank you. I said to my lady the other night, I said, do you know William Shakespeare? She said, oh yes. I had dinner with him the other night. I said, come on, he's been dead nearly 400 years. She said, you know, I thought he was a bit quiet. The ladies of the court would like to sing for you a lovely Welsh folk song. It's all about a boy whose job is to shoo away the birds from the wheat fields. The ladies of the court would like to sing for you, Begay your wedding.
Well,
Brüder, dein Vater mit Ziel. Doch bei dir mit am Gel, ein Rot am Ziel, das ein Jung, bring eine Vida, ja, das Quan, sit on again, den Alon.
Choirs of 150 voices, and here we have our own magnificent seven. Lords and ladies, this is the land of song, but it's also the land of poets. And one Welsh poet who enhanced the English language was Dylan Wells. Just a matter of fact, to bring you a montage of a very famous Welsh hymn and some of the words of Dylan. Every morning when I wake, dear Lord, a little prayer I make. Please to keep thy lovely eye on all poor creatures born to die. And every evening at sundown, I ask a blessing on the town. For whether we last the night or no, I'm sure it's always touch and go. We are not wholly bad or good, who live our lives under the moon. But thou, I'm sure, wouldst be the first to see the best side, not ours. So let us see another day. Bless us this night, I pray. And to the sun we all will bow and say, good night. But just Here in North Wales we have fine singers, in particular tenors tonight. We'd like you to meet an international Eisteddfod. Please meet and greet Bob Roberts.
You understood that, of course?
Yeah.
We call that the language of heaven. Tonight, don't give it another thought. I'm going to sing you a beautiful love song. Enjoy the music, enjoy our lovely language. Don't let it worry you, not tonight, these days. You may have a problem later on. Later on you want to go up there. Just don't speak Welsh, you're not going to get it. The Brits all the tickets in Welsh. This is a marvellous song. A song about summer, and it could so easily be a song about life. In English, this foreign language I'm using at the moment, they call it, "Oh, that summer we're always here." In my language, these are just punters. In my language, we call it, "Oh, that line and hard." Now, I know you've been literally wined and dined. And during the second half of the song, you may get all emotional and feel like joining in with me. But please don't. Look, the other things don't there, but it is a beautiful song. Now, lady, you're going to love it. Oh, have I a heart of you. There weren't many of them, but they were actually pretty good in their day. That's a nice little song for you now. A song of longing. The word longing in Welsh we call it hirau, but the word itself is longing business. Something I know a lot about. All of my 25 years I've been longing. You know me well enough, you know, it's not where I come from, believe me. It's tough. For instance, if I've been away for a while, maybe overseas, singing, the job is over, I've had maybe 2, 3 or 4 weeks there. All my bags are packed, I'm on the way back, Mrs. Brett, to meet the stagecoach. I can't wait to get back. And I'm sure that tonight we have gentlefolk here from many thousands of miles who have come to meet us here at the festival. We're delighted to see you here. But you know, once the tours or once the business trips are over, you're on the way back. The old homestead begins to pull at the heartstrings. You can't wait to get back. Isn't that true? It is true. You've been away a few times. That is true. In my particular case, of course, I can't wait to get back to my little Welsh home and my little. And by a strange coincidence, my lady, it's the title of the song I can learn
I am the weary. Thank you very much indeed. That melody was called Trust the Galley, Over the Stone. I should remind you that this is an ordinary carpenter's saw. In fact, it's the same saws I used a few years ago to cut the timber when I was building my own house. And today, believe it or not, we are the only house in the world with seen wood ones. The last night before a young boy was called to serve his country in the war, his heartbroken father sat down and wrote a poem. This poem was set to music, and this is the melody I'm going to play for you now. If I told you the name of the boy was Dan, the melody must be, of course, Danny Boy. that you are sitting in the site of the old castle chapel. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It was a long time ago when I told you that. But you are sitting inside the old castle chapel. But above you was a room where the Princess Blodwyn used to read her books to her son. One day she was reading a book and she came across a word that she didn't understand. And she looked at it long and hard and she turned to her tutor. She said, "This word I don't understand. What does it mean? This word frugal. What was frugal?" So the tutor said, "Well, frugal means to save." That's what frugal means, to save. So she noted this and went on reading. Well, a little while later, she was walking in the forest of Clue, and she was suddenly beset by some ruffians who carried her off, and they tied her to a tree, and they were just about to have their way with her. When over the mound on horseback came a knight in shining armour, and Princess Blodwyn saw him, and she cried out, "Oh, frugal me! Oh, frugal me!" And so he got off his horse and he frugaled her. Now, Blodwyn became the subject of a very well-known Welsh opera by Dr. Joseph Barrett. Tonight, we'd like to bring you a duet from that opera, and it's to be sung for you by Elspeth and Bob. Elspeth and Bob.
I sing the part of the debonair, extremely handsome, very rich, 6'2" Prince Howard. The things we do for money. Be kind, lovely God.
but I know that my Lord might have a special present for you for this special occasion. And it's, it's the 93 vintage. 93 vintage!
A fine month.
93. 70 particularly for. My Lord Baron, we would like you to accept this small gift with our grateful thanks, especially for the night. I'm not sure, we have no prior record as to whether you need the mead. I normally ask the Baroness if the Baron needs the mead, and she usually says, yes, he does, but of course, you can't expect any answer from the Baroness tonight. There's a lovely old song called Time Alone Will Tell. My Lord Baron, please accept that with our grateful thanks. Now, many congratulations to you, please.
Thank you.
And have you enjoyed yourself this evening?
Very much.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad, because here's our account. All of us here, and all of us there, wish you both a very long life, a very happy, and a very happy and healthy life. May you come back and see us again on one of those many anniversaries that you're.
We certainly will.
My Lord Baron, perhaps you might say a few words or something.
Like this. Maybe I'll sit.
Sit is good. Sit is good.
Well, lords and ladies of the court, tonight we have experienced a wonderful meal in front of us, tastes and spices from the past. And I think we've all thoroughly enjoyed that. And more than that, I think we've really had a taste, especially coming from faraway countries, a real taste of Wales. And the singing, the music, I think you've really given us a true appreciation of your wonderful country and your hospitality. And on behalf of all of you tonight, I think we want to thank you from our hearts.
Thou art a noble man. My lords and ladies, I know you travel many thousands of miles. Don't forget that wherever you are, far away a voice is calling, bells of every chime. Come home again, come home again. They call through the oceans of time. We'll keep a welcome in the hillside. We'll keep a welcome in the vales. This land you knew will still be singing Oh, please don't stop. My lords and ladies, thank you so much. Once again, many congratulations to you both. And to all your families. And we would like to tell you a coffee will be served in the presence room afterwards. And the important thing is if you'd like to purchase yes, you can do that as well, my lord. But it won't be anywhere near as well received as a souvenir stereo cassette of tonight's show, plus a lot of items we didn't do. Normally, you see, we only have a small quality show tonight in the quality audience. Because normally we have a class of thousands. I mean, right the way around through the big ups and downs. But believe me, it is a lovely memory of the full show, with the full choir, full voices, and I'm getting fuller. Safe journeys wherever you may be going, wherever you may be driving, drive carefully. Drive slowly, because I'm walking. Especially you two. May God bless you both. And you all must. Ah.